So here we are, we've got the Col du Portet d'Aspet in the Pyrenees. It's most commonly used in our trips on the Raid Pyrenean. This is in day 3, halfway through, so you've already ridden the Col du Portet, the Col du Portet and the Col du Portet to this point. So this is probably the one that people find the most scary just because of its reputation for steepness. You've got this first section here, this is broadly something like 14 to 18%. I don't think the camera quite does it justice, but as you can see here, so we've got 5 riders on the climb on this day, and this is filmed from our support van, just taking a look at the different styles here. So you've already got some rowing on the pedals here. This is a good rider, Peter here. He's strong. He's not messing about, but you can see how much he's struggling. So you come around this corner, and I think this is where it gets particularly steep. A little bit further up the road, we've got the next rider here. We've got Mark, and he's just passing. You'll see an urn on the left-hand side of your screen in a minute. He's just passing. That's the Fabio Casatelli Memorial urn. So the Tour de France he was racing, coming down, and sadly crashed on this corner. So that urn pictures the spot there with the flowers. And Mark's doing quite well here actually. He's coming up to the corner, and around this corner is the Fabio Casatelli Memorial, which is really special. It's got a sundial built into it. It's a real shame actually, because this is probably on the part of the climb that you actually really want to see, but if you stop here you're probably not going to get going again. So you're in your smallest gear. I think Mark's running a 28 here. You can see he's up out of the saddle. Starting to lighten up a little bit here. That's the first ramp done, and there's the memorial there. So it's an angel wings on a bike wheel. It's a really cool memorial. If you do get a chance to stop, and there's actually a nice illustration there, that terraced wall that you can see shows quite how steep it is at this point. But there's a really nice memorial. If you do ever get a chance to stop, you really should. So the van's passing now, so we're heading further up the road. This section eases a little bit. It's still quite tough. It's still steep. You're not getting any rests on this climb really, but the van makes it look pretty easy, as you can see. We'll cruise up through here. I'll let you settle in and watch this next section, and I'll kick in again when we catch our next rider, who's in for a little bit. They got a head start here, so this hasn't all happened. They didn't all set off at the same time. But yeah, enjoy this section of the ride. This is, like I say, it's probably a little bit easier here. It's still steep. The camera isn't doing this justice. It's probably still at least 10%. But yeah, it's not as bad as the initial section. So this is another rider. This guy wasn't part of our group. He's riding with a camelback on, which is never a recommendation for me, but if you're by yourself, you're unsupported, then hey, it does the job. This isn't very well signposted, this climb. This sign says 3 kilometers to go, so it gives you a bit of a warning of what you've got left. So you've done 1.4 kilometers to this point, which I'm sure is going to feel a lot longer. Now the cars are pretty good here. We're in quite a big van, so you can see that there's no worries about hitting traffic coming the other way. But sometimes cars do cut the corners, so just make sure you're riding out to the right hand side. You can see as well it's quite slippery, so if you ever do descend this, obviously just be really careful because it's very steep and it's all overhung by trees, and you can see how green it is. This is August and it's still incredibly green, so you can see just how wet the Pyrenees can be. We've had quite a lot of rain. It wasn't raining today, but it has been raining quite heavily the last few days in the Pyrenees, so that's quite typical. This section really is a bit of a grind. You're still going, so I'll hit out again until we get to the hairpin and we catch our next rider. So here coming up, we see the van there. We're coming around the corner. So this is our next rider. This is Chris. He's a really strong rider. He's going well. Gives me the wave as I come past here, just to let me know he's all right. There you go. So he's into the meat of it here. You've done the really hard bit. You're coming up to about 2 kilometers to go at this point. Gets a little bit more relaxed. You can ride some of the corners, but again, it's still steep. The camera still isn't really doing it justice. You're in the 9s and 10s here. Yeah, you can see this is tough. This is tough, and people by this point are sort of hoping for the finish. But there's, like I said, there's no real signposting. You can't really see very much on this climb, so it's quite difficult. Even when you know it as well as I do, having driven up it and ridden up it so many times, it's actually quite disorientating. So just got to put your head down and keep going. Got another hairpin here. I think we're due another rider fairly soon, coming up through here. But I'll drop out again and pick up when we see the next rider. So here you go, here's Matt. He's a very strong rider. Bit big for a climb like this, I would say. I'm sure he would tell you the same. He's struggled a bit, but he's riding very well, as you can see. But this is definitely one for the smaller proportion people. You know, a bit less weight to carry is always going to help you on a steep climb like this. But he did very, very well, as you can see. And then we're closing in. We've got Hannes up the road, who's incredibly strong. He's been training for a little solo expedition he's doing in a few weeks' time. So he's been out in Wales and out in Pyrenees and ridden very well. And we catch him just as we're coming up to the summit. Here we go, here's Hannes. So I drop back here and just follow him behind him just to show you what the finish feels like. He's up, he's giving it some watts here, pushing for the top. It's opened up at this point, you get a feeling for where the collar's going to be, and it's just around this corner. So he's giving it some here, go for a final push. We both remarked afterwards how he felt like he was pushed maybe a little bit too soon, but still, you get around this corner, you see he's up out of the saddle here again, down on the drops, giving it everything. And then just there, you can see the Col. It's just this final push. By this point, the gradient has eased a little bit. It's still tough, and obviously your legs are still suffering from what you've done. But you can see Hannes has got a really strong finish here. And you've got the sign on the left, which is the Col marker sign, and the really famous sign on your right on the clapboard building, which is the famous one full of stickers. It's a shame about this car, I don't quite know what they were doing here, parked in the wrong side of the road. But there you go, Hannes reached the summit. So there you go, that's the Portet Aspe, 4.4 kilometres, just under 10% gradient and some real big kicks.